Hello and welcome to our IC Awareness Month webinar. We are delighted that you're here with us today to learn from Kristi Ninnemann, adjunct faculty member at Ohio University's Heritage College of Osteopathic Medicine and an instructor in the Department of Psychology at Cleveland State University. She is also a PhD candidate at Case Western Reserve University and member of ICA's Medical Advisory Council. Before we start, I just have a few things to share. First of all, please note that this session is being recorded. So if you are going to be on camera today, your video will be included in the recording. As well, we will have a Q&A session following the presentation. And you can feel free to go ahead and post your questions in the chat. You may also use the raise hand feature in Zoom. You would then need to unmute yourself, just remember, better than I did, and at which point you can ask your question verbally. If you aren't speaking, please be sure to remain muted. Kristi's going to answer as many questions as she can during the webinar. And for those who would like to ask a question anonymously, you can use the chat, the direct chat option where you just select an individual's name. That you can use my name, Lee Lowry, or the Interstitial Cystitis Association to submit any questions anonymously. And finally, please complete the post-webinar survey. You can find a link to the survey in the chat. It is time to get started. So without further ado, please welcome Kristi.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today or for watching the video at a later time. I'm very happy to be back here again and speaking with you about kind of part 2 of what we talked about last time. So the last time I was here, we spoke about how to speak with other individuals when they're expressing suicidal thinking. And today we're going to talk about how you, as an individual who might be experiencing suicidal ideation, can talk with other individuals. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And there we go. All right. So first, Lee did a great job of introducing me, but I always like to tell people this is what I bring to the table. This is who I am. So I do have a master's degree in counseling psychology. I earned that in 1999, and I practiced for over a decade, specializing in crisis intervention. So I primarily worked in emergency departments and met with individuals who were actively suicidal, individuals who had just attempted suicide, and individuals who were in other types of mental health crisis. So crisis work is what I've done for a long time. I'm also trained in critical incident response, and that is providing crisis intervention for first responders. And I've worked for a national suicide prevention organization for about 7 years now. And through that, I provide online chats and texts with individuals who are actively suicidal or having suicidal thoughts. So crisis work, like I said, this is what I do and this is what I love. So I'm very excited to be here speaking with you today. I did earn my master's in public health in 2014, and currently I am a PhD candidate at Case Western Reserve University. When I was practicing, I saw that I was seeing the same individuals over and over again in my emergency department. And I was trying so hard to help people. And I recognized that our system has some pretty big flaws. And so I returned to school to learn more about that and then engage with the field of psychiatry and the field of psychology and try to improve it for individuals who are using the system. So that's my focus right now. And as Lee said, I am a professor. I teach at Ohio University's Heritage College of Medicine, and I love that. I love getting to teach people who are going to be doctors and really get them oriented towards patient experience that early in the game. And I teach in the Department of Psychology at Cleveland State University. I teach a lot of different things for them, from cognitive neuroscience to I'm teaching psychopharmacology this semester, which is a lot of fun. So I love teaching, and I'm also lucky enough to be a member of the ICA's Medical Advisory Council. And I'm enjoying that role. It's a fun new thing for me to do and to learn more about the experience of individuals with ICA and be of service however I can. I do want to say really quick, I have 2 cats. I am up in the attic. That's where my office is, but it's also their prime area. One of my cats has just woken up and he is my screamer. So if you hear a yelling cat in the background, he is fine. That's just what he does, and I apologize. So if you don't want to hear me say James 8,000 times during this presentation, I'm just going to let him yell. So hopefully he stops, and I'm sorry. Okay, so what are we going to be talking about today? Today, we're going to be talking about how can we seek help, or how can you seek help when you're experiencing suicidal ideation? So I'm having these feelings. How do I talk to other individuals about these feelings? And we're going to be looking at whether or not you're actively suicidal, passively suicidal, or potentially chronically suicidal. And how does that pattern the way that you ask for help? How does that pattern the conversations that you have, and how to think about this? I do want to say, if you right now are experiencing active suicidality and you feel that your safety is at risk, I ask that you please reach out to our National Crisis Line. Their phone number is 988. They're available 24/7. You can call that number, you can text that number, and then I've also shared their website information, because you can go on there and you can have a live chat with an individual. I like these services because you can do this anonymously if you so choose. I also like 988 because the individuals that you are talking to are most often located where you yourself live. So these are people who are going to be able to give you access to resources or give you names and referrals that make sense, that are easily accessible to you, as opposed to someone who might be, somewhere in, let's say, Florida, who doesn't really know the area that you live in unless you live in Florida. So 988 is wonderful. Please do not hesitate to reach out to them if at any point in time during this conversation, during this presentation, you feel like you're at risk and you really need immediate attention. So again, we're going to talk about, how do you start these conversations? How might you be able to plan for these conversations if you are in a space where you're able to do that? And then how can you frame these conversations, and what are some responses you might be able to have in your pocket? And then how do we think about future safety? If we know that we have suicidal ideation, we've had it in the past, it tends to come up on occasion. How do we plan for that? What are some things we can put into place to keep ourselves safe? And then I'm going to give you some resources in general. So I shared this quote last time, and I'm sharing it again because I think it is so incredibly powerful. This is from an individual named Sam Dillon Finch. And Sam says, if you're struggling with your mental health, it is never too soon or too late to let someone know. And it is never, ever too heavy, too messy, or too much to ask. So if you are experiencing suicidal ideation, and that can be thinking about it, that can be planning about it, that can really run a gamut of kind of thoughts, and we're going to talk about that. If you are having these feelings, or even if you are just struggling with your mental health and your mental wellness, it is never too much to ask another individual to sit with you and be with you and help you, because you deserve that help. So what is suicidal ideation? So suicidal ideation, it really falls on a spectrum of thoughts about death or taking one's life. The spectrum does go all the way to not having thoughts of suicide. And then at the other end of the spectrum is what's called imminent risk. So imminent risk is when you're thinking about suicide, you have a plan for how you're going to complete your suicide, you have a time frame. That time frame is within 24 to 48 hours, and you just are unable to keep yourself safe. So that's called imminent suicidal ideation, and that's on one far end. So then you have active suicidal thinking. So individuals can be actively suicidal, be thinking about suicide, be planning suicide, might even have thoughts of how they might end their lives. So they're actively wanting to act on the feelings that they're having, but they're not imminent. So they're not planning to harm themselves in the next 24 to 48 hours. And if you're in that space, this is a very serious space to be in, but it can give you a little bit of a window in terms of who you're going to approach for support, how you're going to approach that individual. But so that's active suicidality, or active suicidal thoughts. Then we have passive suicidal thoughts. So suicidal thoughts that are passive, These are individuals thinking about death, thinking about wanting to be dead, thinking about wanting to die, and maybe even end their own lives, but they don't have any intent to act on these thoughts or these feelings. So there's no intention to end their own lives or do anything for their life to end. So not, attempting to get into a car accident or things of that nature. But the thoughts are still present, and the thoughts are still very upsetting oftentimes, and they're still really deserving of help. So then there's what's called chronic suicidal thinking. Chronic suicidal thinking can happen with passive suicidal ideation. And what this means is that there's this long-standing presence of passive suicidal ideation. It's not something that's transient. It generally does not come and go. It is something that is present and is kind of an undercurrent to life most of the time. This is also a very serious and uncomfortable way to be feeling, and is something that is deserving of support and attention. But the way that this is interacted with can look different, because oftentimes we're not able as professionals to get rid of this chronic way of thinking, but we're able to develop ways to support the individual, and you can develop ways to support yourself to kind of navigate these thoughts that are present. And then there's what's called intrusive suicidal thinking. So intrusive suicidal thoughts are thoughts that are coming into your head outside of your own volition. So you're not sitting and contemplating suicide, but all of a sudden there are these thoughts of, I might be better off dead. I should just kill myself. Things of that nature that are just kind of coming to you in a way that you're not sitting and actually processing what's going on. This isn't a kind of psychosis. This isn't, I'm hearing voices speaking to me. This is just things are happening and I don't want them to, and they're just kind of coming at me. So as I just shared, so passive suicidal ideation, oftentimes more generalized thoughts about, I don't want to be alive anymore. But again, the key here is that whatever thoughts you are having, you're not planning on acting on them. And then individuals who are actively suicidal, again, they've got an urge, intention, and or plan to commit suicide. And it's that framework in terms of time, again, 24 to 48 hours, that puts someone from active to imminent active suicidal thinking. So something that's really important when having suicidal thoughts is recognizing that you're feeling suicidal and validating your feelings. Oftentimes, we've internalized a lot of the narrative that's out there about suicidal thinking and suicidal thoughts, and that this is not a way that we should be feeling. This is not something that's okay to experience. This is something that is inherently bad. And we've taken all of these things, and so oftentimes we try to push these thoughts away. We try to deny these thoughts. We just try to say, I should not be thinking this way. When in reality, to do ourselves the best service and get the help that we need, we really need to recognize, okay, I am feeling suicidal. I am having these suicidal thoughts. This is happening. And because it's happening, I need to get some help. And so I need to think about, how can I get that help? This needs to be attended to. And something that you'll see a lot in the literature about how to talk with other individuals when you are experiencing suicidal ideation is this statement that reaching out is a skill that we're somehow expected to know, yet it's rarely taught or modeled for us. So people will say, reach out to somebody else when you're having these feelings. Reach out to somebody else if your mental health is struggling. Reach out to your support people or your loved ones. And we're not really told how to do that. And so I'm here today to try and help you know how to do that and have some skills in terms of how to do that. So when we're asking individuals for help, when we are in these spaces, it is a very, very vulnerable place to be. So you're already vulnerable because you're having these feelings, and then sharing these things with other people. That's a really vulnerable thing to do. It takes a lot to be able to do this. Recognize, I deserve to get this support. And yeah, this is scary. This is really scary, but I need that to not stop me from asking for what I need. It's important to give people the chance to support you. This can be hard to remember and hard to think about. I think a lot of times individuals feel like, I don't want to burden the people in my life with these thoughts. I don't know how they're going to react, and I don't know what's going to happen. It's really important to give the individuals in your life the opportunity to support them. And the way that I like to think about this is, if someone that I was caring about was experiencing suicidal ideation, I would want them to tell me. I would want to know, so that I had the opportunity to help them as much as I could. And there's someone out there who feels the same way about me. There's someone out here who just wishes that I could, express myself to them. They want me to be able to tell them if I'm feeling this way. So give people the chance to support you. Early intervention when you're feeling suicidal really is critical. And I like the analogy of a leaky pipe in your basement. So if you knew that you had a leaky pipe in your basement, you would ask for attention for that leaky pipe before it flooded your entire basement. And that's a way to think about mental health in general, but specifically suicidal thinking. If this is present, you don't have to be all consumed by it. You don't have to be buried by it. If you are, of course, reach out for help, but you don't have to be at that point in order to say to other individuals, I'm not okay, I need help. And then the process of getting it out, the process of telling someone, can be incredibly powerful, and it also can be really healing. So when you're experiencing suicidal ideation, that's a lot to carry. If you have not shared this with someone else, it's a very, very isolating feeling. It's a very scary feeling. It's a very heavy feeling. And so when you're carrying all of that and you're thinking about, as we talked about before, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be thinking this way. I don't know what I'm going to do. I am afraid of what I'm going to do. When you're able to express that to someone, it is really a powerful place to be. You're not putting it on the individual, but you're able to release some of that. You're able to release shame. And that is incredibly powerful when feeling suicidal. So I really encourage keeping that in mind too, is that it's really good to get it out. It will be very helpful to get it out. All right, so general tips on talking with individuals if you're experiencing suicidal ideation. And these are tips for across types of suicidal ideation that individuals are experiencing. As we move forward, I'm going to give you some specific recommendations depending on what type of suicidality you're experiencing, but these are across the board things. So you want to be direct. You do not need to sugarcoat what you are saying. You don't need to protect the other individual through the words that you use. Being direct really is the surest way that you are going to get the help that you need and the help that you deserve. You want to avoid vague statements. So saying things like, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, I just want the pain to stop. Those are statements that don't clearly state, I am thinking about suicide. I am thinking about ending my life. For you, this might be a really good way just to start a conversation, or it might feel what's safe. This is what's safe for me to say at this point in time, but it's really important to be very direct so people know the severity of what you're talking about and the severity of what you're experiencing. So this falls into or flows into being clear. If you're actively suicidal, passively suicidal, if you're experiencing an increase of your mental health symptoms, if you're struggling, you want to let the individual know where you are at. What kind of suicidality are you experiencing in this moment? And as I said kind of earlier, asking someone for help can really be scary. It can feel really awkward. It can feel really embarrassing. And if you're able, if you feel comfortable, share these emotions with the individual. And what I like to say is it can be a soft entrance into a hard conversation. So sharing, this is how I'm feeling in this moment of approaching you. This is how I'm feeling in this moment of broaching this subject with you and really laying it all out there in terms of how I'm feeling. So some ways to really open that door. I'm scared both to share and to feel this way. So you're letting the individual know, this is the emotional place that I'm coming to, or coming from, excuse me. I don't quite know how to share this, but I know that I need your help. And this isn't easy for me to share or explain, but I need your support right now. These are a few just kind of lead-ins to start conversations that can be very helpful. So asking for help if you are imminently suicidal. So again, you've got urge, intention, plan to commit, you cannot maintain your safety. The way that you reach out for help at this point in time is very different than if you're having passive suicidal ideation or if you're not imminently suicidal. So if you are imminently at risk, if you cannot maintain your safety, you need to be telling someone, I am suicidal, I need your help right now. I want to kill myself and I can't keep myself safe, or I don't feel safe. I need to go to the hospital because I know that I can't keep myself safe. So these are things that are good to say to an individual if you are unable to maintain safety in that moment. It's really important to be direct and be clear. If you are experiencing imminent suicidality, it's really imperative that you talk to someone immediately. You deserve that help. You need that help. Don't deny yourself that. If this is how you are feeling, reach out. There is someone there to talk with you. This kind of goes over what I just said, but you want to raise the alarm. So any plans to attempt suicide, feelings about attempting suicide when you're in this imminent risk, this is a medical emergency, and it's a medical emergency just like any other medical emergency. So one of the ways that you can reach out for help if you are in this space is by calling 911. You absolutely can call 911 and say, I'm actively suicidal. I am really worried that I'm going to hurt myself. I have the ability to do that. I need someone to come and take me to the hospital. They will come and they will get you and they will take you to the hospital. So raise the alarm. It can be treated, well, because it is a medical emergency, just like anything else. And you can think about that too when you're speaking with other individuals. We can tend to be hesitant in terms of talking to others. As I've said, it can be a very scary thing. But when you're talking with individuals, just saying, I'm not okay and I need to get somewhere. I need to get somewhere now. The other individuals that are available, of course, are crisis lines. Crisis lines can be really helpful in navigating imminent suicidal thinking. Oftentimes they will work with you to see if they can bring that level of suicidality down. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to call someone and you have to go to the hospital. They will talk with individuals and really try and get you to a place of safety, whatever that looks like. So ideally, when you're feeling this intensely suicidal, it's good to be able to talk to someone in person, or as I said, with a crisis line professional. And that might be via text, via chat, via phone, whatever that looks like. But talking with somebody who's either a professional or someone who's sitting in front of you, a friend who's sitting in front of you. It's not a great thing to send via email. It's probably not a great thing to send via text to a friend because you don't know when that friend is going to see it. And sharing something at that level of vulnerability that then might not get a response can feel pretty awful, when in reality, a friend might be in a meeting, they might be driving, they might not be able to, give you the attention that you need in a way it's not personal. It's not about them not wanting to support you. So realizing, who do I need to talk to get this help right now is an important thing. And I also really wanted to say, it's perfectly fine if you have no idea what you want to say or what you want. Oftentimes in these places, we are feeling so bogged down, so overwhelmed by depression, by anxiety, by mania, by these thoughts of wanting to die and thinking, this is how I'm going to do it and I am going to do it, that it's very difficult to formulate any kind of coherent statement about what's going on. And it's okay if you're not able to do that. If you are only able to say, I want to kill myself, I am not safe, that is just fine. That is all the information that you need to provide. So please do not avoid reaching out for help because you're just not sure what to say or you're not sure what you want. Someone will help you explore that. They will help kind of dig through that while they're giving you the support that you need and deserve. And another thing that can be really helpful is telling the person what you're telling yourself. So when we're in these spaces, there are really ongoing narratives. There are things that we tell ourselves. Like I mentioned before, like I shouldn't be feeling this way. I don't want to live anymore. How am I ever going to surmount the amount of debt that I am in? How am I going to reach this goal? My kids would be better off without me. All these things that are coming at us, right? It is and can be very helpful to share with the individual those things that you're saying to yourself. That can be a good way of, I'm not quite sure what to say here. So just reflect back. This is my internal experience. These are the narratives in my head right now. This is what I'm thinking. And that can be a helpful way to start a conversation. So then asking for help when you're actively or passively suicidal. And this is when you're able to maintain safety. When you're able to maintain safety, this might give you some time to be able to kind of plan out the conversation a little bit and think about how you want to approach a conversation with an individual and then also who you want to reach out to. The way that I like to think about it, so last time I spoke with you all, we really went through a lot of ways that you could ask someone about whether or not they were having suicidal ideation. And what you can do is you can kind of flip the script of those and think yourself about how would I answer those questions. So questions like, how or what are you feeling? So what is it that you want to convey to this individual that you're choosing to speak with? How long have you felt this way? That can be really important. So I have been thinking about death for 2 years. I have been thinking about actively killing myself for a week. Just giving the person kind of an idea of how long has this been going on for you? That can be really helpful. Have you thought about how you're going to kill yourself? So telling individuals, you know what, I'm thinking a lot about suicide, but I do not want to harm myself and I am not planning on harming myself. That can be very helpful. Saying, I've been thinking about suicide and I've actually thought about taking my medications and overdosing. Or I've actually been thinking about the guns that are in the house. This is really honest information that you can share with an individual and something that they're going to be wondering about. So it's just something that you could consider when you're planning having a conversation with someone. Can you maintain safety and are you worried that this might change? So right now, I know that I'm able to stop myself from acting on these thoughts, but I'm worried that that might change if A, B, and C. Or I'm not really worried that these thoughts are going to change, but if they are, I'd like to kind of think about and talk about other ways that I can get the support that I need if that happens. And then letting the person know, what do you need? Why is it that you're speaking with them? What do you need? How can they support you moving forward? What can they do and what can you do together? So I want to give you just some examples of things that you could say to someone. I think it can be helpful to just look and see kind of what are the ways that this could be done. Oh, and how can they help you? Sorry, how are they able to help you? And you can let them know that. So I'm depressed or anxious or suicidal. I'm not sure what to ask for, but I don't want to be alone right now. This is a very common thing. So for individuals who are feeling suicidal, as I said before, it's a very isolating feeling. And underlying that is this feeling of being alone. So being able to say to somebody, I don't want to be alone. And that might be physically, that might be, I need you to be on the phone with me. That might be, I need you to Zoom with me. But just, I don't want to be alone right now. I don't know what to ask for, but I don't want to be alone. I'm having thoughts of suicide and I can't handle this alone. I need help. For the past, and let's say week, I've been feeling really overwhelmed, depressed, hopeless, and I'm having thoughts of suicide. I'm thinking about dying daily, and I've been experiencing other changes in my mood, like more depression, difficulty sleeping, not really wanting to eat food, whatever might be going on in your life. And for individuals, with ICA, it might be, I've been thinking about dying frequently because I've been experiencing big increase in the level of pain that I'm experiencing. Or I had an experience with a medical provider that really didn't go well, and I'm not feeling seen, and I just don't see how this is going to play out in my life in a way that's maintainable or manageable. I'm struggling right now, and I'm afraid I'm reaching my limit. Can we talk? I'm struggling with my mental health, and what I've been trying isn't working. Can we, and you can ask people about different types of ways to meet up. So can we text each other? Can we Zoom? Can we get together on this date? Or do you have availability this weekend? I mean, maybe we can work together, and you can help me come up with a better plan of how to manage this, because I'm not doing okay. I'm really struggling. I would like to blank, and I need your help. So I would like to find a therapist in the area. I would really like to come up with an effective safety plan. I would really like some help brainstorming some new coping mechanisms, because what I do isn't really working so great. I need your help. So that's a really valid thing to do and a valid way to approach people. So these are ideas, and some more ideas. I'm not okay. I don't want to kill myself, but I'm having a lot of suicidal thoughts and I'm scared. I need your help. I need your support, whatever it is you might need from that individual. I'm really struggling. I keep having suicidal thoughts, and although I don't want to act on them, I'm hurting and I'm scared. This isn't easy to share, but I feel safe with you. So letting somebody know I'm sharing this with you because I trust you. This feels like a safe space to me. When you also say things like, I'm scared to share this, I'm scared to feel this, I'm scared to share this. This can open up a window of sorts for an individual to be able to step in and emotionally support you in that moment and kind of start a positive interaction. So this isn't easy to share, but I feel safe with you. I'm really scared. And hopefully an individual would say, you know what, I'm really glad that you're here. I'm really glad you're telling me this. Tell me more about what's going on. So you can open these little doors in terms of sharing emotion, and then hopefully the person can reflect some emotion and support back. This isn't easy to share, but I need your help. I'm hurting, and while I'm not going to help myself, I'm having suicidal thoughts and I need extra support right now. So you can see in these, these are kind of variations on a theme, but you can see in these that it's really talking about, I'm not okay. I'm thinking about suicide. I'm not okay. And I need your help. I need your support. So with that said, there is no wrong way to tell someone that you are actively suicidal or that you're having passive suicidal ideation. There's no wrong way. If you're hurting, tell someone. I don't ever want someone to get caught up in, how am I going to say this? Am I saying it the right way? I need to plan this to a T in terms of how I'm going to talk to somebody. I like to tell individuals that I've worked with, we can come up with 100 scenarios in our head of how things might go, and 0 of them are going to be right. So there's not a wrong way. There can just be kind of better ways in some senses in terms of what your risk level is. But if you can keep yourself safe, sometimes it's okay not to say the word suicide. Sometimes it's okay to not tell someone I'm having suicidal thoughts in the immediate, okay? You need to be telling somebody, at some point in time, because you need to get help. But in the immediate, it's okay sometimes to set that aside. So I'm going through a particular rough patch of X and I'm in a dark place. Can we? I'm struggling. Can we get together? Can you come over? Asking for very specific actions to kind of help with this. I'm struggling. I'm not in a good place and I could use some human interaction. Can we do this? So oftentimes a coping mechanism for individuals who are experiencing suicidal thinking is to be around other people. And it can serve as a distraction. Okay, I'm going to go sit at the mall and just look at people. Or it could be with friends and be an opportunity for active support from other individuals. But this can be a good thing to ask people. I'm not in a good place. I could use some human interaction. Can we do this? I really need to be around somebody or around people right now. Can we do this? Oh, sorry, let me go back real quick. So, as I said at the beginning of this slide, these are not things to, use instead of talking to someone about your suicidal ideation. And what I mean by that is you still need support for your suicidal thinking. These are ways to, in the moment, potentially get some help and support from individuals that you need prior to be able to have that conversation about suicide. And this is if you can keep yourself safe. These are also things that you can say to an individual that knows that you experience suicidal ideation. So if they know that you struggle with depression, they know that you struggle with, whatever it might be, you struggle with pain and that your mood is really heavily tied to that and that you have really awful times. These are the people that you can say, hey, I'm having a hard time and I need some extra support right now. All right. So something that can be really good to do is ask for specific requests. So be very clear in an ask. And when you're imminently suicidal, this can be, can you take me to an emergency room? Can you help me reach out to a crisis line or a healthcare provider? Can you help me find a crisis line or a healthcare provider? Can you help me find a counselor? Can you help me find a crisis resource? Can you help me get to where I need to be right now to be safe? And can you come over if the person isn't there? Can you come over and we'll stay on the phone until you get here? Can you come over? Can you stay on the phone with me? Yeah. So in the age of technology, we can do some really great things to be able to stay in touch with people and to ask for a different kind of support. So for individuals who are not imminently suicidal, you can send texts to individuals and say, hey, you know what? I haven't been doing well. Can you text me every morning to make sure I'm okay? It would really help me. And oftentimes people will say, sure, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I've been kind of sad. Oh, sorry. Got a little out of control there with my finger pressure. Here we go. I've been kind of sad lately. Could we send memes or something funny to check in with each other before bed every night just to check in? This can be really helpful. One of my best friends and I, we have a Nick Cage meme joke. And so, if I was struggling, I could ask her, hey, can you send me some weird Nick Cage stuff before bedtime just to kind of touch base, but also make me laugh? And that's 100% something that she would do and something that I would do for anybody as well. So asking someone, hey, can you just send me something funny before bedtime just to check in and then, potentially uplift my mood. I'm in a funk right now. Do you want to be self-care buddies? So oftentimes those of us with chronic illnesses, we know other individuals with chronic illnesses and we know how we struggle and we know how things go up and down. And so having kind of a self-care buddy in moments of, heightened feelings, in moments of suicidal thinking can be really helpful. And saying, you know what, can we just touch base with each other every day and share something that we've done to take care of ourselves? Not only is this good in terms of touching base with someone, but this can also be really helpful in terms of learning new coping skills from individuals. So this can be great. Partner up with somebody and say, I'm not doing great. Can we work together? And maybe both of us can improve because of this. And then I've been isolating myself a little bit lately. Can you check in with me every so often? And it can be good if you feel comfortable saying to the person, can you check in with me a couple of times a week? Can you check in with me every other day? Just so you know and they know what the expectation is here, as opposed to just every so often. That can feel a little broad for everybody involved. And again, it can set us up to feel hurt when someone hasn't understood our expectation or our request. So being a little clearer in terms of how often can be a good thing. All right, so a very important thing is, what do you do if an individual answers in a way that's less supportive? First thing, this is a them issue. This is not a you issue. However they respond is coming from their own way of being, their own experience, their own emotions. This is not about you and how you are feeling. So the individual that you're speaking with might not know how to respond. They might not have any idea of what to say, and what comes out might not be great. So allowing a little bit of grace can be helpful when you are talking with someone. So someone might respond in a way that's not supportive, but that doesn't mean that they don't want to support you. So the initial reaction might not be great. but there's someone who still wants to be actively supporting, someone to kind of get through this time period. This is someone, or through this immediate moment, I should say, this is someone who can be really instrumental in supporting you and supporting your mental wellness. Just as it's scary for you to say, it's probably scary for them to heal, or sorry, not heal, hear. It's probably scary for them to hear. So being aware of that. I will say some people just don't respond in an okay way. And if people don't respond in an okay way, again, it's a them issue. It's not a you issue. And you want to move on. You want to talk to other people. And I'm going to get to this. Let me move through my slides here. So sometimes people will say, why? Why are you feeling suicidal? Not particularly helpful in the moment. It can feel really dismissive and it can feel really insulting. But oftentimes it's coming from a place of that person wanting to understand what's going on. But the thing is, as a person experiencing suicidal ideation, that why oftentimes isn't clear. Like, we don't know the why. So saying there isn't a why that will necessarily make sense to you because it doesn't make sense to me. This isn't a rational thing, so I can't give you a rational explanation right now. Or I don't want to focus on why I'm feeling this way. I need to focus on what I am feeling and what I need to do. And I need your help doing that. Why is for a different day. Then there's the all too awful, but you have so much to live for. And this is often a knee-jerk response from people. They just want you to know, but you're so loved. You're so, you've got so much going on. This is something that a lot of people say. A good way to respond can be, I'm glad you can see that. It doesn't feel that way right now. I can't see that. And I need your help to get out of this headspace. Or in my mind, I know that, but I don't feel that. And I know I need help. I need your help. So that's a way to kind of move past this. You have so much to live for. Like, yes, cognitively, I know that, but guess what? I don't feel that. And I'm not able to talk myself out of these feelings. So I need some help here. And keep reaching out. If you don't feel seen, if you don't feel understood, validated, taken seriously, reach out to additional people and/or for professional help. There are more people out there that are going to want the opportunity to support you. Someone wants to support you and someone will support you. And keep asking until you find someone who is helpful. And if you don't find a person in your life who is helpful, seek out someone on a help or a crisis line. So there's someone in this world, I promise, there's someone in this world, whether it's a friend, a family member, a therapist, or even a crisis worker like I've been, who wants you to stay, who wants you to live, and it's genuine. So keep reaching out. And something I like to say to people is really listen to that little voice in the back of your head. Okay. If you are having these suicidal thoughts and your brain is going, this isn't good. This is not good. Listen to yourself, trust yourself, and know that you are worthy of help and support. So don't deny these thoughts. So some crisis tips, planning. This can be something that you can do for future suicidal ideation. So why do you want to address these thoughts? This is something I think is important to think about. So what values do you have? What goals do you have? Who are the people in your life? And then what I call, who are the tethers that you have in your life? So who can you say is keeping me here? This is what's keeping me going. And sometimes it can be things like pets, and it can be something like, it's not that they emotionally support me and keep me feeling great. It's that I can't leave them. I am the one that cares for them. I am the one that feeds them. I don't want them to go to a shelter. So there can be tethers like that. Or if I commit suicide, my brother will not be okay. He will not be okay for the rest of his life. I'm not okay doing that to him. So those can be tethers. What are your strengths? Ask yourself, ask other people, what strengths do I have and how can I build off of these, or how can I draw from them when I'm having these feelings? What are your resources? You want to look at what strategies can you use to get through these thoughts? What kind of activities can you do? And you want to think about things 24/7. So if my plan is I'm going to call my best friend if I start having thoughts about suicide, or I'm going to call my brother if I start having thoughts about suicide. If it's 3 a.m., they might not answer the phone. And it's not because they don't want to support me. It's because it's 3 a.m. So you want to think about options that are available 24/7. You also want to be able to identify what are the thoughts and feelings and behaviors that occur that are warning signs that you're headed into dangerous territory, that you're headed into suicidal thinking, or you're headed into a higher level of risk with your suicidal thinking. Who's your support team? You want to find those names, write them down, have this in a hard copy, as I just said. And if I'm having thoughts of suicide, I will. So again, writing stuff out very concretely. And this is an example of just what a typical suicidal just kind of a crisis plan, suicide crisis plan can look like. There are many, many available on the internet. And here, these are 3 different types of crisis planning and crisis planning forms, outlines that you can access online that I think are very, very helpful. And then here are resources for you to use if you are feeling actively suicidal, or if you are feeling passively suicidal, whatever it looks like. If you're feeling suicidal, reach out to somebody, and here's some crisis resources. And then finally, I really love this quote, and I think it's something to really remember. I think that there's so much fear about reaching out to other people because we don't want them to hurt. We don't want them to think it's their responsibility. We don't want to put this emotion on another individual. And Anna says, if I can live with the awkward corners and sharp edges of talking about suicide, if I can live with the discomfort of wanting to die, people can live with the discomfort of knowing about it. And that's very, very true. So here are the resources that I pulled from for this presentation. And I'm going to stop sharing here so we can have some time to chat. There we go. Hi.
Hi, Kristi, and thank you so much for this really important information, and thanks to all for joining. We're at a point where we can start asking questions. I do have one anonymous suggestion that I'm going to share in a minute, but I wanted to just take a minute to remind folks of, if you have a question that you would like to ask anonymously, you can chat directly with either me, Lee Lowry, or with the Interstitial Cystitis Association, and then I can read it as an anonymous question. Or we are a very intimate group today, so if you just feel like unmuting yourself and speaking up, no hand raising even needed. You could just speak up as you would like. So I invite folks to go ahead and submit those. But I do have, Kristi, as I said, I have one. It's a suggestion, is how I would phrase it, and a comment of thanking you. So basically they said, okay, well, thanks. You are doing good work. You might also include a discussion sometime for people with health issues who are considering going to Europe or whatever to be able to end their lives with dignity. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to comment on that.
Sure. So that's an area that I will say I don't have any personal expertise in. I do have some knowledge about physician-assisted suicide and dying with dignity. And I know that some of the steps to do that, I know that there are precautions that are often taken, and I think that that's important. I think that it's important to explore what types of services are out there, and, am I in a place where this needs to happen? But there are most definitely situations, you see individuals. There's an individual recently who had end-stage cancer, who went to a state in the United States where he was able to end his own life, and with the help of a physician. And yeah, those are scenarios. I can't say that I can speak to that very eloquently, but I can say that I understand that those positions do exist, and that oftentimes not only are physical diseases considered chronic illnesses where someone might consider that, but there is a movement now for psychiatric illnesses as well. And when does a psychiatric illness become something that is terminal, and how do we talk about that? So thank you for that suggestion. Yeah, that's definitely a very, very interesting area. I would say look at work of ethicists. Medical ethicists are going to be the one who really talk about that.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
We do have one question that just came into the chat. Do you have numbers about IC patients being suicidal and or committing suicide?
Unfortunately, no. Um, when I did my last presentation, I was able to find a couple of articles that were written specifically, research that was done with women who have ICA. And what I was able to find is that there's a much higher percentage of suicidal thinking within individuals with ICA. But as far as any kind of specific resource, not anything there, and no numbers that are there either in terms of what suicide looks like. I will tell you that the suicide rate is very high for individuals with chronic pain. The suicide rate is higher in individuals who have a chronic illness of some type. So there is a higher level of risk and a higher level of completion. I cannot give you concrete numbers. I'm sorry. I couldn't find them anywhere.
Thank you. We have another question. Do you have tips for patient advocates to deal with patients who approach a patient association? I'm inferring that she's asking if we have tips for people who may be contemplating suicide, who approach them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. First
So
I
I
will
think she's
say,
speaking for patient advocates
sure. So for like
with
peers.
patients who approach a patient association.
Sure, absolutely. First I'm going to say, and I know this isn't the most helpful thing, but I would say watch the first talk that I gave because it's an hour of how to support individuals with suicidal thinking as a peer, as a family member, as a friend. That is not geared towards teaching professionals how to interact with people with suicidal ideation. It's really geared towards that peer-to-peer. And that's what it sounds like you're talking about. So if you're a patient advocate, if you're someone who's not trained in mental health, what do you do? What I will say is that it's good to have that kind of cheat sheet that what I provided here in terms of what are crisis numbers. And it's okay to say to an individual, just as I said a little while ago, like, I don't know this literature. I'm not the best person to answer this question. Saying to somebody, you know what? I can see from what you're sharing that you really need help, that you really deserve help. I don't have the skill set necessary to give you the help that you deserve. So let's get you to somebody who does. And that can be providing crisis numbers. That can be walking through, steps. Who are you going to go see? Who can you talk to? But really validating that person and what they're feeling. And then saying, I don't have the skill set, but I want to get you to the person who does. I think that can be a really powerful thing to do and a necessary thing to do. Because in those moments, if you don't have the skills, it's okay. It's okay. We can't all be skilled in everything. If you don't have the skills, just get them to a person who does.
Okay. We got another question that I think you've just addressed just now, but I'll just ask it anyways. I missed the first session. Can you summarize the key points? And so I think you were kind of just doing that a little bit. And also Nikki has shared a link to the webinar so people can access the first webinar.
Yeah.
And then the next part of the question is, how do you cope with urinary frequency, angst about making any plans due to uncertainty that you may have to urinate every 10 minutes for an hour or two? And I'm not sure if this is really a question that you're.
Unfortunately, it's not, and I apologize. That's outside of my scope. But definitely hear that would be an incredibly frustrating situation, and that would be something that could feel pretty overwhelming and something that, if you're tied to your house or you're worried to go place. I mean, that sounds difficult. So I'm not sure. I know that the ICA has some support network stuff, and so reaching out. Yeah, I just saw this pop up, like angst leading to isolation, depression. Absolutely. Absolutely. Feeling something that other people, might not necessarily understand. I know that's a really key piece of having ICA, or IC is, just this feeling of like, I'm here alone and other people don't get this. And this is really impacting my daily life.
Mm.
Reaching out to a mental health provider can help. There are mental health providers who specialize in health psychology. And so people who specialize in working with people with chronic conditions. If you have the time and ability, it might be good to find somebody who does that.
That's a great suggestion. I don't see any other questions, but I will go ahead and start to close us out. So I want to first, Kristi, thank you so much for being here with us today. This session was very informative, and we hope that all who joined us today and who watched the recording later find this webinar or found it to be informative and learned something new. If you found this session to be of value, please consider joining us for future webinars and share these opportunities with your community. And as you all know, it's IC Awareness Month. This September, we have set an ambitious goal to raise $40,000. And thanks to the incredible generosity of the Soth family and SPX Corporation, every dollar that you donate will be matched, doubling your impact. The most effective way you can support us is by making a donation right now. With your gift being doubled, you'll make an even greater difference. We need your help to reach our goal, and every contribution, big or small, fuels our mission. Your generosity directly impacts lives, and together we can make a significant change. So if you can, please donate today. All right, this concludes today's presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.